and discuss the current status of the stunting among women and girls and its relationship with reproductive health in Indonesia and the Philippines. And we will hear about the strategies in place to address stunting in both countries. So without further delay, I would like to invite our first speaker, Mr. Bjorn Andersson, the UNFPA Regional Director of Asia and Pacific region. Bjorn has joined the region, the UNFPA Regional Office in 2017. But prior to this appointment, Mr. Andersson served as the Chief of Staff of 2 Executive Directors of UNFPA since 2003. So Bjorn, the floor is yours for your introductory remarks.
Thank you so much, Leila. Excellency Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, Chairperson of BKKBN of Indonesia. Excellency Dr. Juan Antonio Perez, the third Executive Director of Population Commission of the Philippines. And distinguished panelists, Professor Dr. Rizal Damanik, Professor Dr. Alejandro Herin, Dr. Dian Dipo, and Dr. Azucena Dayangyang. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon and good evening from Bangkok. Let me start by telling you a story about Iqbal. Iqbal is a 3-year-old boy in Karawang, West Java in Indonesia, who has experienced stunting. Born weighing just under 2 kilos and with a height of only 88 centimeters, Iqbal is much shorter and weighs far less than the average child of his age group. Rusuna, his mother, is a housewife, while his father, Eko, lost his job soon after Rusuna got pregnant. The family suffered economic hardship in being able to afford sufficient and quality food and nutrition, not only during Rusuna's pregnancy, but also after Iqbal's birth. This is the main reason for this low birth weight and stunting. But unfortunately, Iqbal is not alone. He is part of the large number of stunted children in Southeast Asia, including many in the Philippines and Indonesia. According to UNICEF, around 12 million children living in these 2 countries are stunted. However, both countries have made it a priority to address stunting through health and socioeconomic interventions. The Philippines and Indonesia are not alone in facing this challenge. And in Asia and the Pacific, the highest incidence of child stunting remains in the Pacific, followed by the South Asia sub-region, Southeast Asia, West Asia, Central Asia, and East Asia. The implications are great. Stunted growth, a sign of chronic malnutrition, can affect a child's cognitive development, leading to reduced intellectual capacity, compromising overall health, and even exacerbating already disadvantaged socioeconomic conditions that carry well into adulthood. So, ladies and gentlemen, malnutrition and stunting do not exist in a vacuum. They are problems that are linked to wider issues that must be addressed through a multidisciplinary approach, including issues that may not immediately come to mind, but which are strongly linked. As you may know, UNFPA, the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, remains focused in advancing the unfinished agenda under the landmark Program of Action that emerged from the 1994 International Conference on Population and Development, or ICPD, including in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, a crucial link reiterated at the ICPD 25 Nairobi Summit in 2019. Governments and civil society partners at the Nairobi Summit recommitted to fulfilling the Program of Action by achieving universal access to sexual and reproductive health and rights as part of universal health coverage. This underpins what we call UNFPA's 3 transformative results: ending preventable maternal deaths, ending unmet need for family planning, and ending gender-based violence and harmful practices against women and girls. There are clear links between malnutrition and stunting on one hand and the 3 transformative results on the other. Stunted women, for example, are at greater risk of developing obstetric complications due to a smaller pelvis, delivering low birth weight infants, and which results in an increased risk of chronic non-communicable diseases in adulthood. This in turn also triggers a cycle of malnutrition, as low birth weight infants are more likely to be smaller as adults. In stunted pregnant women, both the mother's and child's health are affected, which increases the probability of maternal and child deaths. Some studies indicate that stunting increases significantly among children living in households with 3 or more children under 5, households with 5 to 7 members, and children whose mothers during pregnancy attended less than 4 antenatal care services. Stunting, thus, is also affected by the number and spacing of children. Violence and harmful practices against women and girls can also contribute to malnutrition and stunting. Violence against women affects a woman's life physically, mentally, economically, and socially, which could lead to health problems that cause or are caused by malnutrition and stunting. Harmful practices such as female genital mutilation and child marriage are a manifestation of the inability of millions of girls and women to claim the fundamental rights of bodily autonomy and self-determination. And we have clearly seen that harmful practices strongly correlate with stunting. A girl child married before the age of 18, for example, is not ready physically and emotionally to form a family, which could lead to an unhealthy pregnancy and subsequent stunting of the child. All of these forms of a vicious circle that often repeats generation after generation, a circle that must be broken once and for all. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, you can see clearly how addressing malnutrition and stunting needs collaboration from different stakeholders, government ministries and agencies at all levels, non-governmental organizations, and civil society, community leaders, and the private sector. We need to work together in alleviating malnutrition and stunting by addressing its multiple and cross-cutting causes. I truly appreciate in that regard the initiative of Indonesia and the Philippines through South-South and Triangular Cooperation to collaborate on these crucial issues. By sharing expertise and lessons learned in an honest, open way, which contributes to accelerating the ICPD Program of Action and the SDGs, and achieving the 3 transformative results. This will contribute and lead to the reduction of malnutrition and stunting in millions of children, such as Iqbal, and help strengthen the prospects for future generations. I hope that the experience of both countries will be widely shared with others across our region and globally in our interconnected world. So thank you again, and I wish you all a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bjorn, for these opening remarks and the story you shared with us about Iqbal and the 12 million children in the 2 countries that are experiencing stunting, and how the 3 transformative UNFPA results can address the stunting and malnutrition. Thank you so much, Bjorn. So now I would like to ask Arthur Erken, UNFPA Director for the Policy and Strategy Division, to take a floor and to make the opening remarks. Let me just say a few words about Arthur. Arthur has joined UNFPA since 1993. He, prior this position, he was the director of the Division of Communication and Strategic Partnerships, and he also served as a former UNFPA representative in the region, in the Asia-Pacific region, in Vietnam and Bangladesh. So welcome, Erkan, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laila. Thank you very much. Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, the Honorable Chairperson of the Indonesian National Population and Family Planning Board, BKBN. Dr. Juan Antonio Perez III, the Honorable Executive Director of the Philippine Commission on Population Development. My colleague, Björn Andersen, the UNFPA Regional Director for Asia Pacific, distinguished panelists, participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening, a very good afternoon, and a very good morning, and warm greetings from New York. As Laila said, I'm the Director of the Policy and Strategy Division that, among other things, facilitates the promotion of South-South and triangular cooperation in UNFPA. And it is with this perspective that I would like to welcome you all to this event. We're very pleased to be associated with this discussion today, taking place, as you all know, on the sidelines of the 54th session of the UN Commission on Population and Development, this year devoted to the theme of population, food security, nutrition, and sustainable development. And of course, with this side event focusing specifically on malnutrition and stunting among women and girls in Indonesia and the Philippines. This knowledge sharing event is another manifestation of the long-standing South-South partnership between Indonesia and the Philippines. In fact, since the 1955 Bandung Conference, which was an important milestone in South-South cooperation, Indonesia and the Philippines have always been ardent proponents of this important development modality, where countries from the global South cooperate with each other in the exchange of knowledge, of know-how, and of resources for their individual, but also their shared development goals and objectives. And UNFPA has long recognized this South-South cooperation initiative by the governments of Indonesia and the Philippines. UNFPA sees it as its obligation to play an enabling and facilitating role in assisting UN member states in pursuing SSTC, or South-South and Triangular Cooperation Partnerships, in the field of population and development, and of course, in particular, in the areas of sexual and reproductive health, which includes family planning and maternal health, and of course, women's empowerment. In fact, UNFPA's support to SSTC is mandated by a number of relevant international agreements, most notably, of course, the 1994 ICPD Program of Action, but also the Buenos Aires Plan of Action that was actually reaffirmed during the 2019 UN High-Level Conference on South-South Cooperation. SSTC is an important and also integral part of the current UNFPA strategic plan and will continue to be so in the next strategic plan, which starts next year. In fact, a UNFPA Commission study that was conducted recently in collaboration with Avenir Health, which is an independent global think tank, found that SSTC produced significant returns of investment. It concluded that knowledge and know-how gained from SSTC were very effective when used in programming. It also turned out that national agencies engaged in SSTC have been able to mobilize more domestic financing from their governments, as SSTC tends to be closely aligned with the overall foreign relations goals of countries. And moreover, this study found that SSTC often generates a so-called knock-on effect, in the sense that initial SSTC partnerships tend to expand into additional cooperation and partnerships in more thematic and geographical areas, while strengthening peace and harmony among participating countries. This last point is, of course, very well illustrated in the SSTC partnership and relationship between Indonesia and the Philippines. For about 10 years, the two countries that we are going to hear about today have been engaged in SSTC in the area of family planning services. And this has, over time, expanded into other areas, such as population dynamics, reproductive health, and gender equality. Our panel discussion today on malnutrition and stunting of women and girls is important not only in its own right, but also in highlighting the benefits and the effectiveness of sharing knowledge, experience, and expertise in addressing a common problem. We therefore, UNFPA, look very much forward to listening to the experts of the two countries as they engage us in the challenges they faced, the progress achieved, the good practices that have emerged, and the ideas they will put forward for moving us all forward on this issue. We will also be interested, of course, in looking for future opportunities in how this knowledge and this expertise and these experiences can be shared among other countries that face similar challenges. I wish you all a very fruitful discussion and side event, and I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arthur, for this.
Lara, you're muted.
You are right. Yeah. So thank you so much, Arthur, for these very important points. And you remind us how the South-South triangular cooperation is important by, through sharing knowledge, expertise, experiences between countries, and the role of UNFPA to facilitate this South-South and triangular cooperation. So without further delay, I would like to call Dr. Juan Antonio Perez, the Executive Director of the Philippine Commission on Population and Development. We know that, Dr. Juan Antonio Perez is a champion, first on the, on sexual and reproductive health and rights, and second on the South-South cooperation and the work that he's facilitating through, the Commission on Population and Development in the Philippines. Dr. Juan Antonio Perez is the Executive Director of the Population Commission since 2013. He also has, more than 27 years of experience working on public and private sector health programs in the Philippines, managing substantial programs of the Philippine Departments of Health, USAID, World Bank, and Asian Development Bank. So, Dr. GP, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laila. From Manila, good evening. To my distinguished colleagues present in this virtual side event, to our eminent principals, Mr. Bjorn Andersson, UNFPA Regional Director for the Asia and Pacific Regional Office, Mr. Arthur Erken, UNFPA Headquarters Policy and Strategy Division Director, to my esteemed co-SSTC Facilitator, Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, Chairperson of BKKBN Indonesia, to our moderators and speakers, and to our partners from the Republic of Indonesia with whom we have been working in the advancement of reproductive health, family planning, and population and development for several years now. To our distinguished moderator and resource persons, greetings of good health, peace, and safety to all. The governments of Indonesia and the Philippines jointly organized this forum in recognition of the continuing relevance of the theme of the 54th session of the Commission on Population and Development, which spotlights the nutrition of women and girls. Though issues pertaining to the nutritional status of these segments of the population have been known and tackled for decades, resolving the gaps remains a challenging task, especially within the context of this ongoing worldwide pandemic. The impact of the health crisis on the nutrition of women and girls is obviously an important development agenda, as it affects any country's initiative on human capital formation. With Indonesia and the Philippines advancing its policy and strategic reforms towards the attainment of the demographic dividend and other socioeconomic objectives, the poor nutritional status of mothers and their children that may result to stunting may derail such initiatives. As such, recognizing the implications of stunting to the overall well-being of the current and future population, the Philippine government remains steadfast in its efforts to prevent an intergenerational cycle of malnutrition. Our first 1,000 Days Act and the Nutritious Food for the Filipino Child Act serves as the overall framework in delivering nutrition interventions and services for the first 1,000 days of life and institutionalizes a national feeding program in public daycares, kindergarten, and elementary schools. Nutrition strategies are likewise included as among the key priorities of our national program to recover from the onslaught of this pandemic. Moreover, the Philippine government continues to implement reforms to promote sustainable consumption and production that emphasizes sustainable food systems as embodied in the Philippine Action Plan for Sustainable Consumption and Production. The Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition establishes home and community food production to provide additional supply of fresh and nutritious food, fruits and vegetables for the Filipino family table. With these policies, sustained across access to universal health care and nutrition services, food and nutrition security is essential to address the needs of the population, particularly young girls, teenage pregnant women, lactating mothers, and their children through a whole-of-government approach to eradicate hunger and to achieve food security. However, much remains to be done to ensure the health and nutrition of women and girls in our country. Together with Indonesia, we would like to take advantage of this platform of continuing learning and knowledge sharing for us to learn from each other on ways we can address the pressing concerns about the nutritional status of women and girls. As such, may this side event be a learning venue for everyone towards effective actions that ensure healthy and empowered Indonesian and Filipino women and girls. Let us continue the dialogue as we carry on to heal as one world. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. GP, for your valuable, words and these important points that you shared with us. So last but not least, I would like to ask Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, the chairperson of BKKBN Indonesia, the National Family Planning Board, to take the floor. So Dr. Hasto Wardoyo is, as I said, the chairperson of BKKBN since 2019. He is a very well-renowned medical doctor and gynecologist in Indonesia. And we really want to hear from you, Dr. Hasto Wardoyo. The floor is yours, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk semuanya. Selamat pagi dan juga sebagian selamat sore dan juga selamat malam. Yang saya hormati YNPA Asia Pacific Regional Director Mr. Brown Anderson dan juga Mr. Arthur dari UNPA Policy and Strategy Division Director, kemudian juga yang saya hormati Karl Kendrick dari Acting Secretary of Social Economic Planning of Philippines, dan juga yang saya hormati Mr. Muhammad, Duta Besar dari Kuasa Usaha dan Interim dari PT RI New York, dan juga Miss Angeli, UNPA Representative of Indonesia, dan juga Bapak Ibu dari kementerian dan lembaga, dan juga sebagian dari universitas, akademisi, para pejabat tinggi, dan juga peserta di side event di CPD 54 pada kesempatan kali ini, dan para wartawan. Kita panjatkan puji syukur kepada Allah SWT, Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa. Kita diperkenankan dalam keadaan sehat untuk berkesempatan hadir bersama-sama dalam webinar hari ini. Dan pada kesempatan kali ini, saya atas nama BKKBN Republik Indonesia memberikan penghargaan yang setinggi-tingginya kepada seluruh hadirin yang telah berkenan bergabung dalam webinar Sharing Best Practice, Lesson Learned dalam penanganan stunting. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, izinkan dalam kesempatan ini saya menyampaikan beberapa hal terkait dengan upaya untuk penurunan stunting di Indonesia. Kita ketahui bersama bahwa berbagai faktor dapat menyebabkan terjadinya stunting, diantaranya adalah kurangnya asupan nutrisi yang diberikan, dan juga adanya infeksi berulang atau infeksi kronis, dan juga ada faktor-faktor jauh seperti katakanlah sosial ekonomi, kemudian sanitasi, dan juga banyak hal lainnya. Terbatasnya layanan kesehatan di samping hal-hal tersebut di atas tentu juga menjadi faktor yang penting, yang tentu ini menjadi bagian pendukung dari faktor spesifik ya. Permasalahan stunting di Indonesia menjadi salah satu prioritas nasional dalam rencana pembangunan jangka menengah, dalam hal ini RPJMN 2020 sampai 2024 ya. Sehingga memerlukan berbagai intervensi untuk dilakukan tahapan bagaimana mulai dari mengurai penyebab stunting secara langsung maupun secara tidak langsung. Intervensi yang dilakukan terhadap penyebab langsung diantaranya memberikan makanan tambahan bagi ibu hamil dan juga orang miskin. Dan BKKBN akan mengawal program penurunan stunting dari hulu. Dalam hal ini mulai dari mereka yang mau nikah, kemudian hamil, kemudian pasca persalinan. Kita kawal dengan program-program yang terkait dengan masalah persiapan menjadi ibu, kemudian juga deteksi dini kehamilan yang ada kelainan-kelainan selama kehamilan, termasuk adanya intrauterine growth retardation harus bisa dideteksi dini, dan kemudian pasca persalinannya bagaimana memberikan breastfeeding atau ASI eksklusif yang baik, dan juga kemudian memberikan makanan tambahan. Tentu tidak lepas dari usaha-usaha untuk promosi, kemudian juga memberikan petunjuk tentang tata laksana gizi yang baik, dan kemudian diikuti satu pemantauan dan evaluasi. Ibu Bapak sekalian peserta webinar yang saya hormati, kita memang tidak mengesampingkan faktor-faktor jauh seperti meningkatkan penyediaan air minum, kemudian sanitasi, dan juga akses-akses pelayanan-pelayanan yang lainnya. Akan tetapi kita memang mengingat waktu yang sangat pendek sampai di tahun 2024, di mana kita target mencapai 14%. Oleh karenanya dengan adanya pandemi, kemampuan ekonomi yang terbatas, maka kemudian kita berusaha menggunakan anggaran yang terbatas, tetapi untuk menyentuh hal yang sifatnya lebih memberikan daya ungkit atau leverage yang signifikan. Nah, oleh karenanya bagaimana peningkatan gizi kepada ibu yang mau hamil, kemudian yang sedang hamil, kemudian juga 1000 hari kehidupan pertama, ini menjadi bagian yang penting. Ibu Bapak sekalian yang saya hormati, Bapak Presiden di tanggal 25 Januari 2021 secara lisan memberikan mandat kepada BKKBN untuk menjadi ketua pelaksana di dalam penanganan penurunan stunting dengan target 14% di tahun 2024. Tentu ini adalah target yang tidak mudah, sehingga kami harus melakukan kerjasama, kolaborasi dengan kementerian dan lembaga yang terkait, dan kami harus melakukan program konvergensi di tingkat grassroots, di tingkat masyarakat. Oleh karenanya itu kemudian program yang kita lakukan secara inovatif itu yang kita kerjakan adalah bagaimana merubah tatanan pelayanan di grassroots. Kita membuat sistem namanya pendampingan. Ya, jadi sistem pendampingan ini keluarga-keluarga yang berisiko stunting itu diberikan pendampingan. Dan pendampingnya adalah kita beri nama sebagai pendamping keluarga, dan pendamping keluarga itu ada provider yang medis, dalam hal ini bidan, kemudian ada PKK sebagai tokoh masyarakat yang ada yang formal, tokoh masyarakat formal, karena PKK adalah istri kepala desa dan jajarannya. Kemudian yang berikutnya adalah kader yang sudah ada di BKKBN, yaitu yang kita sebut dengan PPKBD dan sub PPKBD yang existing sudah ada di BKKBN. Itulah pendamping yang kita siapkan sebagai pendamping keluarga. Kita berharap yang mau nikah di Indonesia sebanyak 2 juta setahun itu juga terdampingi sehingga terscreening. Kemudian yang hamil 5 juta setahun semua terdampingi. Kemudian pada saat melahirkan semua terregister, melahirkannya di mana, ukurannya berapa, sehingga ini menjadi suatu data besar yang sekaligus untuk bisa melihat kondisi masyarakat yang ada di Indonesia, dalam hal ini potensi stuntingnya. Ibu Bapak sekalian yang saya hormati, ketika angka stunting kita sekarang ini existing 27,7%, maka dengan jumlah balita yang mencapai hampir 23 sampai 24 juta, maka memang mendekati 7 juta jumlah balita yang stunting. Kami tentu akan fokus kepada balita yang memang ada permasalahan stunting, kemudian juga fokus mencegah bagaimana ke depan setiap tahunnya ada 5.000 bayi lahir. 5.000 bayi lahir ini harus dicegah sejak dari awal. Nah inilah makanya mulai dari remaja putri, kemudian calon pasangan usia subur, kemudian juga kita harus kampanye pemberian ASI eksklusif dan juga kampanye penggunaan kontrasepsi agar jarak melahirkan birth to birth interval ini bisa dijaga dengan baik, tidak kurang dari 3 tahun. Inilah konsep-konsep yang kita kembangkan. Kita akan berhitung betul berapa jumlah yang hamil, berapa jumlah yang lahir, dan berapa yang harus kita cegah secara bersama-sama. BKKBN tentu menyadari penuh bahwa stunting ini bisa dilakukan intervensi dan bisa dimodifikasi atau mungkin dikoreksi. Itu hanya dalam waktu yang sangat terbatas, yaitu hanya waktu 1000 hari kehidupan pertama. Oleh karenanya BKKBN kemudian menyusun langkah-langkah kepastian untuk supaya kita memanfaatkan 1000 hari itu dengan baik. Oleh karena itu kita kemudian mempunyai 10 langkah, yaitu langkah untuk memastikan bahwa pendamping keluarga itu hadir di tengah-tengah keluarga. Ya, apa yang harus dilakukan? Yang pertama, mesti mendeteksi mana keluarga yang punya risiko tinggi akan melahirkan anak stunting. Kemudian tentu kita akan mendampingi mereka. Kemudian juga kita harus menapis mana keluarga yang penggunaan sarana prasarananya belum sempurna, termasuk cara buang air besarnya, penggunaan air bersihnya, kemudian juga sanitasinya. Bagaimana kepemilikan rumahnya? Apakah rumahnya masih rumah yang tidak layak huni? Apakah rumah yang layak huni? Kemudian bagaimana pola makannya dalam sehari-hari? Bagaimana cara dia mengakses kebutuhan gizi? Itu seperti apa? Ini harus kita rekam, kita potret. Kemudian di dalam pendampingan juga tentu ada penapisan terkait dengan kesehatan reproduksi. Jadi tadi yang kapan usianya berapa, yang mau nikah, apakah sudah siap untuk nikah dan siap untuk hamil, ini juga kita tapis di keluarga. Kemudian juga penapisan dan pendampingan, tadi sudah saya katakan pasangan usia subur yang hamil, kemudian sampai pada saat dia menyusui, kemudian 1000 hari kehidupan pertama. Dan semua langkah kepastian pendampingan itu kita kemas di dalam satu sistem Internet of Things yang nantinya menjadi bagian aplikasi baru yang akan mewadahi semua kegiatan yang terkait dengan stunting. Tentu dari ini bisa melakukan audit yang secara periodik, bisa di tingkat kecamatan atau di tingkat kabupaten, ini tergantung dari jumlah penduduk yang ada. Jadi kita bisa melakukan audit secara rutin terhadap kasus-kasus stunting, sehingga nanti ada rekomendasi harus dilakukan apa untuk masing-masing kasus by name by address. Ibu Bapak yang saya hormati, tentu Indonesia dan Filipina telah melakukan banyak kerjasama melalui selatan-selatan di bidang kependudukan, kesehatan reproduksi, dan kesetaraan gender sejak tahun 2012. MOU pertama antara Indonesia dan juga Filipina telah dilaksanakan dengan baik oleh kedua negara untuk jangka waktu 5 tahun. Dan MOU tersebut kemudian diperpanjang pada tahun 2019, nanti sampai 3 tahun lagi hingga tahun 2022. Pada pertemuan Indonesian-Philippine Stunting Prevention Knowledge, tentu di tanggal 26 Agustus 2020, Filipina telah berbagi pengalaman dengan Indonesia dalam upaya penurunan stunting. Dan prevalensi stunting untuk balita di Filipina menurun dari 33,4% tahun 2015 menjadi 28,8% di tahun 2019. Ini juga menjadi pelajaran yang baik bagi kita. Dan atas dasar tersebut di atas, maka BKKBN merasa perlu untuk mendapatkan pembelajaran best practice dalam penurunan angka stunting secara cepat. Ya. Oleh karena itu, saya memberikan apresiasi yang besar atas kerjasama Indonesia-Filipina untuk berbagi informasi, khususnya terkait dengan penyelesaian permasalahan stunting. Serta saya mengucapkan terima kasih banyak atas dukungan dari PTRI, dari New York, dan juga UNPA yang telah mendukung acara webinar dalam rangka memeriahkan momentum sidang CPD yang ke-54. Ya. Semoga Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala selalu melimpahkan rahmat-Nya untuk kita semuanya, dan semoga kerjasama dan kolaborasi ini dapat kita jalin semakin erat. Demikian yang bisa kami sampaikan. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hastu Wardoyo, for your very important points that you shared with us about the program in Indonesia and the importance of also the South-South cooperation between Indonesia and the Philippines. So once again, I would like to thank all our esteemed speakers for these opening remarks and for sharing with us your key insights in relation of this session. And now from Manila, where I'm based, I would like to give the floor to my colleague and my counterpart in UNFPA Indonesia Country Office, Ms. Anjali Sen, the UNFPA representative in Indonesia, who will facilitate the panel discussion. Over to you, Anjali.
Thank you so much, Leila. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, Professor Dr. Dominic, Dr. Alejandro Herin, Dr. Dian Dipo, and Dr. Dayan Girang. Participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you for this very exciting panel discussion, and greetings from Indonesia. I will just go through some housekeeping rules, and then I will present and introduce each of the panelists as they speak. Each panelist will have 10 minutes for their presentation, and participants can raise their questions for the panelists in Slido. And I think you can see the link on the chat. And at the end of the presentation by the 4 panelists, we will also have time for questions and answers. So without further ado, and in the interest of time, I note that we are already running a little late. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Professor Dr. Rizal Damanik. He will present on stunting, reproductive health, family planning, and youth, a conceptual framework. Dr. Professor Damanik, the floor is yours, and you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Anjali-san. Good morning.
Let me before that, excuse me, Professor Damanik. Yes. I would like to introduce you as well before you start your presentation. Professor Damanik is currently serving as the Deputy for Training, Research and Development of BKKBN, which is the National Population and Family Planning Board of Indonesia. He holds a position of professor at the Department of Community Nutrition, Faculty of Human Ecology at Bogor Agriculture University in Bogor in Indonesia. He also holds a doctoral degree in International Health and Human Nutrition and a Master of Science on Biology of Reproduction from Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. And he, in addition, holds a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Bogor Agricultural University. His area of specialization is nutraceutical, functional food, and nutrition for pregnant and lactating women. He has conducted a variety of research on agriculture, health, and nutrition, and written many articles in both national and international journals and books related to nutrition and health. Professor Damanik, the floor is yours now for your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Anjali-san, for a very nice introduction. So good evening from Jakarta, good morning and good afternoon. Honorable Mr. Bjorn Andersen, UNFPA Asia Pacific Regional Director, Mr. Arthur Arkan, UNFPA Policy and Strategy Division Director, His Excellency Carl Henrik de Chua, Acting Secretary of Socio-Economic Planning of the Philippines, His Excellencies Muhammad Kalkoba, the Indonesian Ambassador for New York, and Dr. Hasto Wardoyo, Chairman of BKKBN Indonesia. The topic of my presentation tonight is about the strategies to address malnutrition or stunting among women and girls in Indonesia. Slide, please. So, next slide. Thank you. So, Indonesia is currently in the last period of our long-term development plan, 2005 to 2025. We have established our National Medium-Term Development Plan, 2020-2024. And the government of Indonesia has set 7 development agendas which are in line with the elected president's missions and direction. Among these agendas, 3 of them are highly related to the core business of BKKBN, namely Agenda 3, improve quality and competitive human resource by providing family planning and reproductive health services. And then Agenda 4, mental revolution and cultural development by focusing on strengthening family resilience, and Agenda 7, to strengthen stability of political security, law, and transformation of public services by particularly being active to promote South-South triangular and collaboration. Next slide, please. Some of the problems that exist in Indonesia that can cause stunting in children include the high number of young pregnant women who suffer from anemia, babies born with low weight and length, babies born prematurely, women marry at young age of 10 to 19 years, and pregnancy less than 2 years or 24 months apart. Next slide, please. So this slide shows that in the 2015 to 2019 RPGMN period, the decline in stunting was at an average of 0.2%, whereas in the 2020 to 2024, the reduction target is 2.5%, which means zero additional stunting. And to achieve this target, an accelerated reduction in stunting is required. Slide, please. Several determinants of stunting can be differentiated by several factors. First is immediate causes, or we also can call it as proximal, namely the condition of the mother while pregnant and the condition of the baby at birth. Then basic causes or intermediate second, such as lack of nutritional needs of mothers and causing lack production of breast milk, lack of health services, and the need for vaccinations or additional supplements for pregnant and breastfeeding mothers, and poor living environment. And the next factor, namely basic causes or intermediate first, is government program, such as providing cash for poor families, national policies on nutrition, mothers, babies, and toddlers. The last, the smallest factor is the micro-level social, economic, political, and environmental context and factors. Next slide, please. This slide shows about the distribution of stunting cases in Indonesia in 2019. It's clear here that the convergence trial to strengthen the field lines are being carried out to accelerate stunting alleviation in Southwest Sumba District in North Nusa Tenggara, north of Nusa Tenggara Timur Province by the coordinating Ministry of Human Development and Culture with BKKBN through the pre-marriage, pregnancy, and periodic approaches. Next slide, please. The fifth, client-centered approach. This is an ecological model which focuses on BKKBN program that prioritizes direct interaction with the community, such as group activities, surveys, as well as through family planning and reproductive health campaigns in both print and electronic media. Next slide, please. That's all for my presentation tonight. I'll turn it back to the moderator. Thank you, Anjali Sen.
Thank you so much, Professor Damanik, Father Manik. Thank you for your very comprehensive presentation, outlining various factors, the conceptual framework, the convergence framework, and outlining also how adolescent pregnancy, inadequate spacing are significant determinants of stunting and malnutrition in Indonesia. And of course, we know that we need to empower women to make their own decisions about pregnancy in order to ensure that pregnancies are planned, which contribute to stunting reduction. So thank you very much. And you have really stayed within your time allotted as well. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much. I would now like to invite our second panelist, Professor Dr. Alejandro Herrin. His presentation is on reaping economic and social gains through addressing reproductive health and maternal and child nutrition, a conceptual framework. Professor Alejandro Herrin is a retired professor of economics at the University of the Philippines School of Economics, Diliman, Quezon City. He is currently visiting research fellow, Office of the Population Studies, University San Carlos, Cebu City. Dr. Herrin holds a PhD in economics, specializing in health economics, population economics, human resource economics, and development economics, with years of professional experience in the fields of health, nutrition, and population, family planning policy, gender mainstreaming, healthcare financing, health information systems, monitoring and evaluation of public programs, and local governance for health. He has worked with various national agencies in policy development, program and project assessments and capacity building, and provided technical assistance to multilateral and bilateral agencies in improving health information systems and evaluating public policies and programs and formulating policies. Professor Herrin, the floor is yours.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Professor.
Okay. Let me just make it bigger. Okay. Let's see. One more. There we go. So good morning in Indonesia and the Philippines. Good evening, Indonesia, Philippines. Good morning, New York, and a good day everywhere else. In my presentation today, I describe a simple framework for understanding the economic and social gains from reproductive health and maternal and child nutrition interventions, and show approaches to quantifying such gains. And I start with the overall framework outlining the key pathways in which major components of reproductive health and maternal and child care nutrition interventions help generate economic and social change. I just highlight three major components: comprehensive sexuality education, family planning, and maternal and child health and nutrition. These key components can be looked at as a continuum of interventions. One set of interventions relate to preventing early childbearing, and one element here is education, often provided in schools, but should ideally start in the family. These interventions is expected to contribute to delaying early childbearing among teenagers, which give them a greater opportunity for obtaining more education, for example, completing at least high school. And higher education increases the prospects for higher lifetime earnings, which translate into reduced risk of poverty for these women and their families in the future. We also noted that childbearing is a contributing risk factor to high-risk births, to high risk of maternal and neonatal adverse outcomes, and to risk of child stunting. Now, a family planning program is expected to reduce unwanted births, which results in reduced total number of children. Fewer children, controlling for other factors, promote higher human capital investments per child in education and health, and allows the family to save for future consumption and investment. The greater investments per child produces greater human capital that increases their productivity in the future and reduces the risk of being poor. Likewise, greater family savings and investments contribute to economic growth and also translate into poverty reduction. Reduction in unwanted births, which are likely to be high-risk births, also reduces the risk of maternal and neonatal mortality. And finally, maternal and child care affect nutritional outcomes of young children, in particular preventing child stunting. And as was mentioned earlier, child stunting affects child health and survival, schooling performance, and productivity as adults. A simple framework to test the relationships among early childbearing, education, and lifetime earnings are depicted in this slide. The results from a study in the Philippines show that early childbearing reduces the probability of completing high school, particularly high school. And the age earning profiles among those who completed high school is higher than those who did not, controlling for other factors. And discounted lifetime wage earnings foregone in 2012, where this study was done, by a cohort of teenage women aged 18 to 19, resulting from early childbearing is estimated at 33 billion pesos, representing 0.3% of GDP. Now we go into the broader concept of the effect of demographic change on economic growth and fertility and poverty reduction. These concepts that are used in demographic transition and demographic dividend is based on the concepts derived from the national transfer accounts. The national transfer accounts measures consumption by age and labor income by age. And so age structure changes due to changes in fertility and life expectancy. The structure of consumption and labor income changes as well, and this affects the pace and pattern of economic growth. We often use the term demographic dividend to describe the growth of the economy arising from age structure and related changes in human capital and asset accumulation. In the first set, you have fertility decline leading to an age structure change towards the ages where productivity is highest, which is the working age group. In this age structure change, the number of consumers, the ratio of effective workers relative to consumers increases. This is the support ratio. The increase in the support ratio increases income per consumer or economic growth. This is called the first demographic dividend. As fertility continues to decline, the population becomes more aged, and eventually the number of workers relative to the number of consumers decline and the support ratio falls, leading to stagnation in economic growth. This is where the first demographic dividend ends. But the second demographic dividend also is possible. The decline in fertility is usually accompanied by greater investments in human capital of children, and this raises their productivity once they join the labor force. Furthermore, the aging population, faced with an extended period of retirement, provides a strong incentive to accumulate assets to finance their post-retirement consumption. This available capital per worker also raises output per worker, which also increases income in the consumer. While the first demographic dividend is transitory, the second demographic dividend extends indefinitely, and the effect is more substantial that can offset whatever negative effects of the first demographic dividend. The next set of slides shows how we estimated the first and second demographic dividends in the Philippines using three different fertility scenarios. The business as usual, represented by the blue, which is the slow fertility decline. The rapid fertility decline, represented by eliminating unmet needs for family planning by year 2022, as called for by presidential executive order, and a delayed elimination of unmet needs by 10 years, which is represented here by the yellow line. A key result is that a more rapid change, where we do this for individual dividends and then the sum of both dividends and an index. And the key result is that a more rapid fertility change with accompanying changes in human capital investments and capital accumulations translate into greater economic gains earlier in the transition period. And note the hump in those curves. And what we note is that a given economic gain is worth more if obtained sooner than when it is achieved later, especially if it is much later. You can test that with whether you want your peso now or your peso tomorrow. And you think you'd rather have it now than tomorrow. So another way in which we can use these results is to translate these demographic dividends into poverty reduction. And our estimates show that poverty is reduced by 5 percentage points in terms of rates, or at least as much as 8 million population out of poverty as a result of these changes. And then finally, another approach to quantifying the gains from health, nutrition, and education is the construction of a human capital index that the World Bank has done. Human capital index measures the human capital that a child born today can expect to attain by age 18, given the risk of poor health, poor education, and stunting. They combine these components and come up with an index. And the estimated human capital index, as shown in this slide in selected countries, show that the Philippines, for example, given the performance it has on health, education, and stunting, can expect only half the potential future productivity from a cohort of 18-year-old. You can see that. And Indonesia is not much different. So for both of these countries, we sort of end in a sad note, and we don't want to end in a sad note. So I end this presentation with a call for a more vigorous implementation of reproductive health and maternal and child nutrition. Good day and mabuhay. Thank you.
Apologies for that. I was trying to get my mute button. Thank you so much, Professor Herin, for your very comprehensive presentation outlining the economic and social gains from reproductive health, maternal health, and also really bringing out how sexuality education, family planning, and maternal and child health nutrition interventions through different intermediate outputs, such as preventing early childbearing, unwanted pregnancy, will contribute to the prevention of stunting, leading to economic growth and poverty reduction. Also, thank you so much for sharing with us the this impact of health, stunting, and education on future productivity through the Human Capital Index, and for indeed calling for a call to action that we really need to act fast on family planning, maternal health. So thank you for that. And it is my pleasure now to introduce our third panelist, our third speaker, Dr. Dian Dipu. Her presentation is on stunting among women and girls with different socioeconomic backgrounds in Indonesia, the current status, influencing factors, and strategies to address these. Dr. Dian Dipu started her career as head of subsection of community nutrition improvement of the district health office in Lebak, Banten, Indonesia in 1989. She currently serves as Director for Community Nutrition, Ministry of Health. and she holds a doctoral degree in public health from the University excuse me, University of Indonesia in 2016, a master's degree in health planning and policy from the University of Leeds, United Kingdom in 1999, and an undergraduate degree in public also from the University of Indonesia in 1998 in public policy. She has dedicated her life on nutrition and community empowerment, including micro and macronutrition, nutrition standardization, and nutrition development programs at the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Indonesia. Dr. Dian Dipu, the floor is yours for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Anjali, for your introduction. Good morning for New York Times, good afternoon, Philippines and Indonesia, and good evening for Bangkok. Hope you all stay healthy in the pandemic situation. Now, I would like to present regarding stunting among women and girls in Indonesia. In controlling malnutrition, the government takes a focus in 1,000 days of life and adolescent girls, because the next generation in good quality would be determined by adolescents. Please, the slide, please. Anybody help for the share screen?
Can someone please help us with sharing the screen? Yeah, we have it here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Anjali. The next, please. So this presentation, I would like to talking about the nutrition problem in women and girls, nutrition intervention for adolescents, and nutrition intervention modification in a pandemic situation. Next, please. From this slide, describe that even prevalence of stunting has seen a decline since 2013 in both boys and girls. However, it is still a public health problem. The data also show that the incidence of stunting is increasing at a lower economic status for the small graphic in this slide. So apart from poverty, the problem of stunting in Indonesia is much influenced by a level of knowledge, parenting, and environmental sanitation, which then affect to food intakes and infectious disease. Next slide, please. As we know, investing in adolescent is a strategic investment. The number of adolescents in Indonesia is quite large. About 18% of all population is adolescents. Thus, the benefit if adolescent is intervened, as mentioned in the health goals in our planning document, RPGMN, would be achieved the next generation in superior, great quality, and ready to compete. In the slide shown that the problem regarding nutrition problem in adolescent and pregnant women is anemia. There is 2 to 3 of 10 adolescent girls are anemia, and half of pregnant mothers also anemia. Meanwhile, the lifestyle of adolescents have not been settled. Almost of all adolescents consume less fruit and vegetables, consume sugary and salty food, and more than half of them are lack physical activities. So we can imagine what the problem of nutritional status in adolescent and women. Next slide, please. In increasing health quality and nutrition adolescent as the key to the success of meeting nutrition needs by improving nutrition adolescent girls, as also in the pregnancy preparation period by giving iron folate tablet to prevent anemia. This will indirectly contribute to reduction of stunting in the future with the healthy newborn from the healthy mothers. This effort requires support from all sectors, especially through assistance for adolescent girls. As Pak Hasto mentioned before, the assistant for the adolescent, assistant for the pregnant woman, assistant for the family could be established in the village. As I have already mentioned, investing in adolescent is a strategic investment because the number of adolescents is quite high in Indonesia, more than 15 million. The next slide. Effort to address adolescent problem, we determine 3 strategies. First is a balanced nutrition education. It conduct because adolescent activities, they are quite busy with school and social activities with peers, as well as the growth period experience cause adolescent to need adequate nutrition support to meet all these needs. Then to improve good practice by nutrition education that based on guideline of balanced nutrition, especially now, various types of contemporary food circulating around adolescent with high sugar, salt, and fat content cannot be denied. Thus, adolescents need to be equipped with knowledge to make choices that are healthy and well-nourished for themselves, supported by a supportive environment through food regulation and control efforts. And then the second is IFA supplementation, iron folate supplementation. The average diet of our adolescent is still far from balanced nutrition, especially to fulfill of micronutrients. We can be seen from the high problem of adolescent anemia. Through the comprehensive iron supplementation for young women that consists of iron and folic acid to overcome anemia and as a reserve of iron for the next phase of the age cycle. The third is fortification. In general, targeting the community, including adolescents, through the addition of certain nutrition in food products. Currently in Indonesia, this has been done on wheat flour with iron, cooking oil with vitamin A, consumption salt with iodine, and rice with multivitamin and minerals. Next slide, please. This is a guideline for balanced diet for healthy living, which is we distribute and we educate the adolescent, which have four pillars, namely diverse food, clean and healthy living behavior, physical activity, and monitoring ideal body weight. This guideline for balance are visual in 1 meal portion through isi piringku, which describe the portion of food groups that are recommended to be consumed in every meal. Isi piringku illustrate the recommended proportion of food groups to be consumed in each meal. Half plate contains of source of carbohydrate and protein. The other half content of fruit and vegetables. The plate also show the important message. It is to always wash hand before and after eat, and drink enough water, 8 glasses per day, and physical activities. Next slide. The Ministry of Health continues to strive to improve the quality of nutritional status and health of adolescents in integrated system of existing program regulation, both inside and outside schools. The existing and running program need to be continuously supported by all relevant stakeholders so that their coverage and quality are better. At the community level, Young Health Post is a forum for the implementation of nutrition education and counseling, as well as IFA supplementation to maximize effort to improve adolescent nutrition, conduct capacity building and mentoring of youth cadres were also carried out, as well as disseminating information through social media and influencer among adolescents. At the Puskesmas or health center, adolescent nutrition services are carried out in the PKPR or youth care health services. The program is handling adolescents with nutritional problems, ensuring the availability IFA tablets, and also as well as cooperation between health workers and teachers in effort adolescent nutrition education and improvement IFA consumption compliance. Meanwhile, in school, adolescent nutrition problems have been routinely carried out. IFA supplementation, nutrition education through the health school program at junior and high school, educational modeling through healthy school, as well as increasing the capacity of teacher and education capacity of the teacher for educate the parents. Effort to improve nutrition through health school program are carried out through health service and education. Next slide. In the pandemic situation, we also modified all education and intervention, such as educate to consume balanced diet to improve immunity, in health service modification in nutrition and adolescent health online and offline, conducting nutrition services by utilizing technology to continue the disseminate information such as teleconsultation and home visit. Meanwhile, the modified implementation is conducted in accordance with regional condition and policy. In this slide also has a QR code, which consists of nutritional education material that could be downloaded by all. Then the conclusion, realizing the importance of fulfilling adolescent nutrition is an effort to, next slide please, to improve the quality, to strengthen education and advocacy to increase awareness and iron supplementation consumption, as well as implementing the balanced nutrition by paying attention to local resources, to prevent adolescent nutrition problems, support by all related sectors, and support from government partners, academics, community, organization is need to assist regional government to encourage the creation of a regional innovation and good practices through community empowerment. And the last is dissemination of information and nutrition education for adolescents by utilizing technology and influencer among adolescents. This is important to have influencer among adolescents, because they always copying the behavior, the style. So influencer is also the important thing. Then thank you very much. Terima kasih. Back to Anjali.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you so much, Dr. Dipo, and really for your comprehensive presentation and for pointing out the need to empower adolescents through health education and innovative behavior change communications in order to promote health and prevent stunting. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has allowed us, on the one hand, innovation in program delivery, but also reminds us that health morbidities like stunting, in fact, these fall along the fault lines of inequality, which is indeed further exacerbated during this pandemic. So thank you very much for that. Our final speaker this morning or evening for us in Asia Pacific region is Dr. Dian Ging Arang. Her presentation is on stunting among women and girls with different socioeconomic background in the Philippines, current status, influencing factors, and strategies to address. Dr. Dian Hirang is an experienced public health leader. For the past 29 years, she has been a facilitator and a trainer for various health programs, particularly on maternal child health and nutrition. She has served the people of Davao as the City Nutrition Action Officer from 1991 to 95, Chief of the Technical Services Division and Medical Officer of Davao City Health Office from 1996 to 2005, as well as the Provincial Health Officer and Provincial Nutrition Action Officer of Davao del Sur from 2008 to 2016. During her stint in the local government, she led the City Nutrition Committee in the planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of health and nutrition programs. She initiated the fresh milk supplemental feeding program, which led to the reduction of protein energy malnutrition amongst 0 to 6-year-old children. She has also successfully lobbied for the regularization of 32 nutritionist dietitians deployed in the 16 districts of Davao City in 1996. In 2016, she was elected as the National President of the Nutrition Action Officers of the Philippines Association. And shortly after, she was appointed as the Deputy Executive Director of the National Nutrition Council, which is an attached agency of the Department of Health in the Government of the Philippines. In August 2019, Dr. Dhian Girang was appointed as the Executive Director of the National Nutrition Council. Currently, she is designated as the Scaling Up Nutrition, the SUN program of the Philippines government focal point, and most recently, she has been appointed as a member of the Executive Committee of the Global Scaling Up Nutrition Movement, representing Asia and Papua New Guinea. Recently, President Duterte signed the appointment of Dr. Dhian Girang to a Career Executive Service Officer, rank 3 till 3rd December going forward. So, Dr. Dhian Girang, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anjali. A pleasant day, everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the South-South Triangular Cooperation of the Republic of Indonesia and the Philippines, represented by the Commission on Population and Development, for hosting this joint side event and for inviting me as a resource speaker. I would also like to thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. On behalf of the National Nutrition Council Philippines, I am very honored to share with you my presentation on stunting among women and girls with different socioeconomic background in the Philippines, current status, influencing factors, and strategies to address. Without further ado, let me begin my presentation. We have the second slide, please. Okay, next slide. Malnutrition gradually weakens the well-being of millions of girls and women around the world. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, more often than not, the face of malnutrition is a female. A fundamental cornerstone of any individual's health, adequate nutrition is especially critical for women because inadequate nutrition wreaks havoc not only on women's own health, but also on the health of their children. Children of malnourished women are more likely to face cognitive impairments, short stature, lower resistance to infections, and a higher risk of disease and death throughout their lives. Next slide. In the Philippines, nearly 1 in 3 children under 5 years old is stunted or too short for their age. The Philippines ranks 5th among countries in the East Asia and the Pacific region with the highest stunting prevalence and one of the 10 countries with the highest number of stunted children. Based on the recent 2019 expanded National Nutrition Survey of the Department of Science and Technology, Food and Nutrition Research Institute, stunting prevalence decreased by 1.5 percentage points, but this remains as a public health problem still with medium to high severity. Stunting in the Philippines is highest actually among rural dwellers and among poorest households. Next slide. The 2019 expanded national survey of the DOST-FNRI revealed disparities in relation to stunting rates along gender lines. Data showed that the prevalence of stunting among girls at different age groups are lower compared to the rate of stunting among boys. Now, for preschool children, the stunting prevalence among girls was at 28.1%. For school children, the prevalence of stunting among girls is at 23.8%, while for adolescent girls, stunting prevalence is at 24.9%. Next slide. Stunting in the Philippines actually results from poor maternal nutrition and health during pregnancy. There is also inappropriate child feeding and care, and exposure to repeated infections during the first 1,000 days of life. The time spanning roughly between conception and one's second birthday, which offers a brief but critical window of opportunity to shape a child's development. Next slide. Stunting is a product of early insults of fetal life due to poor health and nutritional condition of a pregnant woman. When a pregnant woman does not get the calories, key nutrients, or essential protein she needs to support her baby's development, her baby is placed at risk for developmental delays, birth defects, and cognitive deficits. In the Philippines, 22.9% of pregnant women are nutritionally at risk and 19.9% are anemic, according to the DOST-FNRI National Nutrition Survey in 2019. The State of the World's Mother report by Save the Children in 2012 argues that the low nutritional status of most mothers in developing countries is the result of the cumulative and the synergistic effects of many factors such as 1, limited access to food and health care. 2nd, the power relation in the household. 3rd, the traditions and customs that relegates women's needs as secondary to men. 4th, nutritional demands of early and frequent pregnancy. And 5th, breastfeeding and the heavy demands of physical labor. Next slide. In the Philippines, the 2018 Food Consumption Survey of the FNRI DOST revealed that energy inadequacy was seen in all population groups. It recorded a mean energy intake for pregnant women at 1,630 kilocalories. This is actually 570 kilocalories lower than the recommended energy intake of 2,200 kilocalories for pregnant women based on the Philippine Dietary Research reference intakes. The same is true for lactating women. Next slide. Filipino women also suffer from domestic violence, economic disadvantages, discrimination at the workplace, exploitation as migrant workers, and as prostituted women, and displacement brought about by the intermittent wars in conflict-affected areas. In the Philippines, the Department of Health's 2017 National Health and Demographic Survey revealed that 17% of women aged 15 to 49 have experienced physical violence since age 15. Next slide. In all societies, women are the primary caregivers of children. Not only of children, but the elderly and the ill, and do most of the domestic tasks. In societies where women marry very young and much earlier than men, wives defer more to husbands, and this has a substantial bearing on women's chances of finding paid work and receiving an education. Next slide. Last August of 2020, the Philippines Economic Development Agency declared the number of teenage pregnancies as a national social emergency. Early pregnancies among adolescents have major health consequences for adolescent mothers and their babies. the Philippines has recorded a 7% increase in births among girls aged 15 and below in 2019. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority revealed that Filipino minors who gave birth in 2019 increased to 62,510 from 62,341 in 2018. Next slide, please. Aside from being the primary caregiver and doing most of the domestic tasks, women also work up to 16 hours a day in some developing countries. In the Philippines, results of the DOST FNRI survey revealed several reasons why mothers were not practicing breastfeeding. Among these reasons are: 1, mothers cannot produce enough milk; 2nd, mothers had nipple or breast problems; and 3rd, mothers were actually working away from home. Next slide. So, being a complex problem, there is no single nutrition intervention to address stunting in children, but rather multiple, complex, and coordinated nutrition-sensitive and nutrition-specific interventions in partnership with other actors in development. The Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition, or PPAN, 2017 to 2022, acts as the country's blueprint of actions for nutrition improvement, led by my agency, the National Nutrition Council, together with key national and local stakeholders. The guiding principles of the Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition include prioritizing nutritionally vulnerable groups such as pregnant women, lactating women, infants and young children, and nutritionally affected from poor families and communities that have less access to resources and services, as well as gender sensitivity. The Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition, or PPAN, features 8 nutrition-specific programs devised to address the immediate causes of malnutrition. These will be complemented by nutrition-sensitive programs already existing in developmental programs that can be tweaked or modified to produce nutritional outcomes. Programs under the PPAN 2017 to 2022 aim to reach 90% of the target population, and the ambitious target is to reduce stunting from 33.4% to 26%. Next slide, please. Nutrition-specific programs of the Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition 2017 to 2022 include the Infant and Young Child Feeding Program. So among its components are the health system support, community-based health and nutrition support, maternity protection and improving capacity support places on breastfeeding, and the establishment of breastfeeding places in non-health establishments. The PPAN also includes the National Dietary Supplementation Program, which provides supplementary feeding to pregnant women, children ages 6 to 23 months old, and school children. It also includes micronutrient supplementation, which, among others, provides iron, folic acid among teenagers at school. Next slide, please. To address stunting, hunger, and partly wasting in the Philippines, the DOH National Nutrition Council launched a nutrition-specific intervention, a focused dietary supplementation program, which is called Tutok Kainan in Filipino language. So the components of the sub-program included: 1, dietary supplementation; 2nd, nutrition education; 3rd, micronutrient supplementation. Now, this program involves giving supplementary food to pregnant women for 30 days during their last trimester. 90 days during their last trimester of pregnancy, and to 6 to 23 months old children for 6 months. Furthermore, implementation of this program will be complemented by nutrition education through text blasting of NutriText and mother's classes using My Mother, My Idol module. The said module will guide the mother participants to examine their existing feeding and caring behaviors for them to identify which of these practices must be retained, improved, or changed. Next slide, please. Furthermore, deficiencies of micronutrients such as vitamin A, iron, iodine, and folate are particularly common during pregnancy due to the increased nutrient requirements of the mother and developing fetus. According to the World Health Organization, these deficiencies can negatively impact the health of the mother, her pregnancy in general, as well as the health of the newborn baby. Thus, implementation of this program will also include micronutrient supplementation, which is one of the recommended programs by Lancet under the maternal intervention package for the first 1,000 weeks. Rural health units and village or barangay health centers in the Philippines shall maintain routine micronutrient supplementation targeting infants, children, pregnant and lactating women, adolescent girls, and women of reproductive age, aligned with the national guidelines, but without compromising the COVID-19 response measures. Among the important suppliers or commodities to be provided to prevent micronutrient deficiencies are vitamin A capsule and the multiple micronutrient powder or the MNP sachets among infants and children 6 to 23 months old. Likewise, for pregnant, postpartum, and or lactating women, iron and folic acid is needed to prevent anemia and the consequent low birth weight of the unborn infant. Next slide, please. Therefore, malnutrition actually poses a variety of threats to women. Since this is brought upon by different influencing factors, different evidence-based and cost-effective interventions that can improve nutrition outcomes among this population are needed. According to Osmani and Sen, women's deprivation in terms of nutrition and health care rebounds on society in the form of ill health of their offspring, males and females alike. This further rationalizes the need to make nutrition a top development priority alongside issues such as poverty, climate change, and national security. This would be all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And once again, a pleasant day to everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deangiran, for a very illuminating presentation. Indeed, the face of malnutrition is female, and you have outlined how the efforts to address it must therefore incorporate a gender lens and tackle the root causes, including the gender drivers of malnutrition, such as power imbalance, harmful gender norms, traditional and customs that relegate women's needs to the background, and the nutritional demands of early and frequent pregnancy. And also thank you for sharing with us the Philippines Action Plan for Nutrition to address stunting. So thank you very much for your presentation. We have a number of questions from the participants, and I'd like to just go through them. And I think the first one is to Professor Alejandro. So Professor Herin, if I may read out the question for you, is how demographic characteristics of the nation impact to the nutritional status among women and children's nutritional status affected by fertility. I hope that's clear. That's the question that has come from the participants.
Thank you for your questions. I think there are many pathways. If I understand your question, many pathways in which fertility decline leads to favorable or unfavorable effects on many economic and social dimensions. In the first slide that we showed, one looks at, for example, if we look at family planning as a starting point, how that affect the capacity of couples to achieve their wanted children and reduce especially high-risk births, which are in themselves a risk factor for maternal and neonatal mortality, as well as a risk factor for poor birth outcomes and as a risk factor for child stunting. So they're all interrelated in that sense. And one can translate those health effects into social effects in terms of not only child health in particular, but the effects of poor child health and nutrition on education, as well as future productivity when they are adults. So they're all interrelated in many ways. And as we have shown earlier, how we might quantify some of these very intricate interrelationships. And one summary approach that the World Bank uses to compute human capital index, where you combine these different aspects, the child survival, the adult survival, the education component, corrected for the quality of education, and then the health of children, not only their survival rate, but more importantly in this particular case, and particularly for our topic, the importance of stunting as a major human capital that has great impact on future productivity of the nation. So I hope I answered your question in terms of all of those interrelationships that hopefully we can unravel through quantitative means. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. The next question we have is for Professor Damanik. The question is, how are you going to synchronize the family enumeration with the population census data in relation with the stunting intervention in Indonesia?
Okay.
Damanik.
Thank you for this question then. The KKBN's family enumeration has different methodology with the national population census. Family enumeration has the family as the unit of analysis, while population census has the household as the unit of analysis. That's the basic thing. And the population census embraces more simpler and general variables such as names, ages, gender, and occupations, while family enumerations embraces more detail and technical variables related to the family life, such as family housing, family customs to share food, clothes, and religious activities. So in this case, family enumerations complement to enrich the data of population census. And moreover, family enumeration is completed with variables to record whether there is a stunting case within a family who's have children under 5 years old. Since family enumeration documented all families across nationwide, thus we can have the data and families with stunting cases by name and address, and therefore we can deliver interventions to save these children. Thank you.
Thank you, Damanik. Our next question is to Dr. Dhyan Dipu. In your opinion, how to prevent stunting is the most effective way in considering the archipelagic situation in Indonesia? Dr. Dipu.
Thank you for the question. Okay, then for the, yeah, actually, the education is a rise of awareness for the adolescents or for the family to remind the girls to consume balanced diet and to consume IFA supplementation in once a week. So we have no general strategies, but the strategies could be developed by the what you call region, district, because they have a specific program for their district. For the whole strategies, as I mentioned before, we have 3 strategies: the education, the IFA supplementation, and the fortification. But to conduct it in a village, in a district, in cities, it should be what you call appropriate with the condition, with their condition. So they should have innovation for their. Okay, thank you, Anjali. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Deepo. Now we have a question for Dr. Dhyan Hirang as well. Are the strategies applicable for the COVID-19 pandemic effective, and how far is the measurement and its chosen strategies affected by the pandemic?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Actually, in the Philippines, during the pandemic, the National Nutrition Council, being also the head of the nutrition cluster, actually immediately organized the emergency operation, and then we went to villages and as far as barangays to really assess the nutritional status, and also provided adequate food especially for those vulnerable populations such as women and children, particularly pregnant women. So I'd like to answer also the question on what is the most effective strategy during COVID-19. Actually, first and foremost, we really have to emphasize on the first 1,000 days strategy. So this is the delivery of quality dietary supplementation program, alongside with promotion of supplemental feeding, promotion of behavior change communication, and then partly on nutrition education, teaching mothers on really what nutritious foods to prepare, because the government of the Philippines during COVID-19 response, local government units provided food packs for families, households to households. So during the pandemic, we continuously advocated for breastfeeding. So that all the more, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, malnutrition even increased, because of the no access or inaccessibility to food. So therefore, local government units in the Philippines provided even up to the household levels food packs. And this composed of nutritious food packs like fresh food, produce from farmers, instead of buying from the market, because the markets are closed. So they have their backyard gardens, or farmers can have produce. So all the produce of the farmers are given to households in the communities. So that would be all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Dhyan Hirang. We have a question for all the panelists, but I also note that we are running short. In fact, we've exceeded our time. So may I request the panelists in responding that they make very quick 2-minute interventions. I know the question needs more time, but since we have little time left with us, we have to be quick. So the question really to all of you is, and we can start in the order that we had the presentations. So stunting is linked with gender inequality. Therefore, its proportion in most cases is higher among women and girls. So what kind of interventions to address gender equality, in your opinion and experience? So Professor Damanik, can I ask you to give your short answer to this very complex question?
That's right. Okay. It's a stimulating question, actually. So sure, stunting issue is indeed often related to gender issues, Anjani. Many findings have indicated that stunting cases are more notified among female children. BKKBN has implemented many programs to empower and protect women throughout their life cycle. For instance, since children age, women are promoted to maintain their school enrollment until higher education. And second, at adolescent age, for instance, girls are encouraged to finish their school or entering workforce to delay their age at the first marriage and childbearing. Some health intervention to improve their nutrition and health status, such as provision of folic acid pills to prevent anemia, which threatens to maternal deaths, and then proper education on balanced diet is also essential. And the third, when entering family life, women are enhanced to improve their family economy income by joining group activities to improve family income generation. Here in Indonesia, we call it as UPPKS in Bahasa. So these all interventions are delivered to prevent and to reduce stunting cases, especially related to gender issues. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you so much. Dr. Herin, would you like to respond as well?
Yeah, well, in terms of these gender issues, for me, we need to understand what are the traditional norms at work that affect different gender outcomes. On one hand, where you find girls who might be more malnourished than boys, same thing with women and men, could it be that the gender norms applying there is what is called an investment model in the family, where the inputs, the scarce inputs like food and nutrition are given to those that will contribute to the income of the household, which means boys working in the farms and so on, at the neglect of women. But then on the other hand, we can turn it around where in some cases, like in the Philippines, where the boys might be even more at risk of malnutrition, again, a particular gender norm might be at play, which says boys will be boys and they can do whatever they want. If they don't want to eat, if they want to play, they go ahead. Whereas girls are supposed to be proper. They should be doing what they're told, which is to have the meals on time and so on. So the different behavioral aspects that define these traditional norms. In the case of the male, it's a kind of behavior that is harmful for them. In the case of female, it's a kind of behavior in the family that disadvantages the girls. So it's kind of complex thing, but that's why we need to understand what is the underlying traditional gender norms that is driving all of this inequality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Helen. Dr. Dipu?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
very much, Anjali. It's a complicated question, I know. As we have a gender problem in some part of area in Indonesia, as I mentioned before, the activity should become from the district as a specific activities as well as their culture. But actually, we have involved the men in nutrition education, also in assistant for the girls or the pregnant woman. So the men, father, husband, feel they have responsibility for their families. So and in health integrated post called by Posyandu, we have also men cadres. So we have we do the education, we do the raise the awareness for the whole family is important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Deepu. And the last word is yours, Dr. Dhyangiran.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I'd like to focus our discussion on what kind of or the Philippines has to offer in terms of gender inequality. Actually, we just have the President of the Philippines just signed the what we call the expanded maternity leave for women. So this enables women to have their maternity leave for up 105 days period. So if women or pregnant women are able to have this maternity leave for a longer period, so she has the time to have her body fully developed, and at the same time enables her to breastfeed her baby for a longer period of time, and at the same time, regardless of economic and social background, maternity leave are paid. So we would like to emphasize that healthy women are happy women, and that pregnancy and motherhood should not be reasons why economic opportunities such as employment should be taken away from them. So we believe that mothers and their families are allowed to recover physically and mentally from, actually, we believe that mothers are allowed really to recover physically and mentally from pregnancies, and in welcoming their newborns as new addition to their lives, so they are able to participate in the economy much more effectively as healthy citizens, healthy workers, and more importantly, as healthy parents. So that would be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the panelists for very rich presentations, very comprehensive and insightful. I think we move to the last part, which is some closing remarks from my end. There are more questions, but I don't think we have the time for that, unfortunately. So I would like to present my concluding remarks as we end this very rich seminar. And as we have seen from all the presentations, both the governments, Indonesia and Philippines, have indeed shown their strong commitment to implementation of the ICPD program of action. And as we know, the ICPD program of action called for measures to strengthen food, nutrition, and agricultural policies and programs, with special attention to the creation and strengthening of food security at all levels. And malnutrition and stunting do not exist in a vacuum. We heard that. These problems are driven by structural inequalities, harmful gender norms, and power imbalances. Therefore, to address malnutrition, we must approach this very complex problem from its root causes and address it through a comprehensive and multidisciplinary approach. Given the complexity of the problem, SSDC to share lessons learned and best practices is crucial. And it is really important that we continue and take forward the dialogue that we have witnessed today, the very rich dialogue and exchange of experiences. Government ministries and agencies at all levels, non-government, civil society, community leaders, and the private sector all play a role in addressing these root causes of malnutrition. And this is more crucial than ever before. The COVID-19 pandemic has not only further exacerbated the vulnerability of women and girls, including their access to adequate nutrition, but has shown us that for an equitable recovery, we need to address these root causes of gender inequality. A key pathway that was highlighted today was that improving the nutrition status of women and girls cannot really be seen as separate from fulfilling their rights and choices. When every woman and girl has the power to make informed decisions about their bodies and lives, including when to plan a pregnancy, they are more likely to continue to school, participate in the workforce, and indeed obtain adequate nutrition. The three transformative results of UNFPA of ending unmet need for family planning, ending preventable maternal mortality, and ending gender-based violence and other harmful practices that we work towards are therefore central to the pathways of ending malnutrition and stunting among women and girls. I'd really like to give a huge round of virtual applause to the panelists for their very rich presentations. I would also like to thank UN DESA, BKKBN, Indonesia, POP Commission, Philippines, permanent mission of both the countries of Indonesia and Philippines in New York, of course, our UNFPA headquarters and UNFPA Asia Pacific Regional Office, and all our UNFPA colleagues in Indonesia and Philippines, along with who have been working closely with BPKBN and POPCOM in organizing this very significant side event. And with that, I wish you all a very good rest of the day for those in New York, and a good night for all of us in the Asia Pacific. I thank you very much. Mabuhay, terima kasih banyak. Stay safe and well, everyone. And thank you for your indulgence in the fact that we have exceeded the time limit. And thank you very much. Also, a big round of applause to the participants who stayed through till the end and asked a lot of interesting questions. We didn't have time to address all of them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anjali, Prof. Damanik, Prof.
Everyone.
Prof. Herlin.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
Damanik.
you also get a certificate. The participants get a certificate for joining. So I believe you can register for that online as well.
Thank you.
Take care, Pa Rizal and Dr. KBN. Take care.
Dr. JP, thank you very much. Colleagues from the
Yes.
POPCOM of the Philippines, UNFPA of the Philippines, and UNFPA of Indonesia, and all of the speakers. Bu Dian, thank you very much, and Bu Anjani, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. GP.
Yes,
It's so
sir.
nice to
Yes,
see
sir.
you virtually.
And
Nice to see you
nice to
virtually.
see you again.
Yes,
Bye.
yes. Bye, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Bye.
much, colleagues.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Leila. Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Dr.
Eugenie. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paulinas.